That's not supposed to do that. So what we're going to be doing today is changing the hub on here. The wheel bearing must be bad. Normally, if you have some play this way, it would be the tie rod, but that would be playing only one direction. Usually play in just this direction would be your ball joints, but playing both directions is likely the bearing or combination. I had someone else wiggle this wheel while I was watching it. It looked like it was coming from the hub. So we'll pull the tire off, have a closer look, and we'll pull the caliper off and get this wheel bearing changed out. While we're doing that, we'll also service the brake, lubricate everything, maybe clean up the paint on the calipers, and replace some brake hardware as well. Okay, tires off. So whenever you're doing an oil change or changing tires, it's a good idea to inspect everything. Jack up the truck, wiggle the wheel, see if there's any play. I like to service my brakes once a year. Make sure everything's moving properly, lubricated, just to keep everything all safe. Needles, pliers, and we also have a 32mm socket for the axle nut. I bought these as a set, and I also bought this for Amazon, so I'll put a link in the description for Amazon links. If you use those links, it will help out the channel. I will also put a link to this Timken hub on Amazon if I can find it. This does say made in USA. I did purchase this from Rock Auto. Amazon limits what they ship to Canada, so a lot of the stuff that you can buy in the US on Amazon, I don't get in Canada. So the new hub will come with a new ABS sensor and wire. You can remove the wire from these brackets here and here. You're also going to have to unclip it from up here, right under there. And I'm going to use a 10mm to remove this bracket right here. That'll give us more room to move our caliper. So this bracket here has got a 10mm bolt on the back. So here's our ABS connector. You can hang your calipers or set them on something. I use a bucket. It works well. You don't want to hang your caliper by the brake hose, so go ahead and break your 17mm caliper bolts. One on the top, one bottom. If your pads are loose, you should be able to slide. Actually, on these you can slide the caliper right off. And it's going to go on the bucket. Those are caliper pad cushions. Now I'm going to take off the caliper bracket. So I'll switch into the 18mm. And we may need the breaker bar. It has a lot more torque on it. Yeah, those are broke. We'll spin them out. Okay, with the caliper bracket off, we can remove our rotor. That's safe. cotter pin out. That's a pretty big cotter pin. And now that we got our brakes off, I'm going to spray everything down with penetrating oil that we're going to remove. I didn't want to before, just to avoid getting near the pads and rotor. One more here on the knuckle, ABS wire. So I forgot to say this, but before you start, make sure your vehicle's secured, parking brakes on, wheels are chalked. So improvisation here. I got a bar holding the hub. I'm not worried about damaging those studs because the new hub has new studs. I'm going to use breaker bar, so either break this free while the wheel's on the ground before you take everything off, or have a big enough impact that I can spin it off. Should be good now. Loosen this tie rod, and we got another cotter pin here. Okay, I'm going to separate this ball joint so I can get in behind a lot easier. I've run the nut up to the top. I'll leave it tight. That's loose. Now we can use our 22. With our ball joint separated, now turn our knuckle. Hopefully you can see the 3 bolts here, here, and then one on the opposite side. We're going to want to use our breaker bar. There's the 3rd one at the bottom here. Loosen those. Okay, we're actually able to get the impact on there now. Oh, looks in pretty good shape. There's red Loctite on that. Okay, now if we're lucky this will pop out. If we're not lucky, we're going to have to do some more work. Okay, so no luck. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to knock out a couple of these studs and put bolts through, put nuts on the back, and use that as kind of a press or puller. Pull the hub off. So we're not reusing these, so they can be hit with your hammer. You're gonna have to have your stud over here to clear. Turn that around. There you go. Okay, so this is what I'm doing to make a puller. A bolt with a good amount of thread on it, and the diameter should be close to the wheel studs, just because too thin of a bolt won't be strong enough. We're going to put it through, put our washer on, and thread our nut. Got a second one. We're going to do 2 so we can pull from 2 sides at once. Other one. I have seen some Titans without this shield, and it makes it easier to put it directly on the knuckle. There is the nut. You you can see the knuckle directly right here. But we're gonna want to do two at once. So pick two sides where the bolts will clear the hub. You can see the hub here, so we can't put the bolt here. And you want to make sure there is knuckle behind it. We are going to bend the heat shield a little bit, which we can't really help. I'm not too worried about that. Just make sure you have it in a good spot where you're not going to destroy it. We're just going to go back and forth, top and bottom. Would have been nice to get two bolts the same size. I realized I didn't. And we're going to have to hold this nut. Yep, starting to separate. I'll spray some more lube in there. You can see the gap here, but we're still not loose yet. So I've moved one of my bolts over here. That's pulling up the bottom. And we're just about there. Axle's coming with it, so I'm going to give it a hit. There we go. Okay. There we go. So you can see we did put some marks on this, but overall it didn't really affect it. We did accidentally press on a spot where there was nothing behind it and we went through it, but that should be fine. There's our old hub. So with the hub out, we're going to want to clean up this face here, the wire brush, and around in here. I'll use some brake cleaner as well, and scuffing pad. So we got this cleaned up pretty good. It's pretty smooth. We'll put a little bit of grease on the splines. If someone knows how much grease should actually be on there, let me know. I don't want grease on these threads. I don't want grease on the brakes. If you do it the other way and put grease on the hub, you risk getting grease on the threads as you go in. Just putting a little bit. There wasn't really any grease on it when I pulled it out, so I'm going to keep it pretty light. I'd love to take this off and paint it. Maybe when I do the ball joints, I will do that. I don't want to take the ball joints apart right now. so I'm not replacing them right now. So before you start putting everything back together, check all your bolts in here. You got nice clean access. Upper shock bolts, lower shock bolt, sway bar and link bolts, and your top and bottom ball joint bolts. And of course we're gonna torque that one when we put it in. The service manual does recommend new bolts for the hub, probably because the new ones come with Loctite. And we're just gonna add some red Loctite to all these, because these ones seem to be in good shape. I did hit this with some paint just to keep the rust at bay. Didn't really spend much time on it. Okay, time for a new hub. Be mindful of the ABS sensor location. It's going to go here, and we're going to have to lift our axle. And we're going to do some wiggling as we do this. Shield on. Axle. Sure, if we've got the axle in here, must. Kind of just goes in. Just grab the axle nut. I've learned from my mistakes. I'm going to tighten that up last. Well, the hub's pretty much seated. That's good. Now we can thread our bolts in. As you tighten those bolts, it's going to draw it in. I'm just turning it by hand and it's drawing it in. This can go there. So put it in up here, and we can reconnect it. There. Came with a new clip. Stick that into the frame. This one's going to go on that bracket. We put that bracket back. Want to make sure the axle where it's supposed to be. Splines are lined up. Seems to be good. Throw our hub in some more. Okay, let's give this one some torque. These are going to go to 155 when we're done. Okay, that's about all I can get on that. One. These ones are going to be hard to do because I got to pull up. Alright, not too bad. Okay, so the next step will be to reinstall our caliper bracket. And we've got our new pins and rubber things. It's only going to fit one way. Caliper bolts. I'll run these bolts in with my socket wrench. Those are the 18s. Starting to race the rain here now. Probably could get an impact on the back, please. Make this quicker. Let's go to 155. One-armed. So next up, we're gonna put our pads on. Just gonna give this a wipe off. I did spray these down with some brake clean, but there's still some dust on the back. Okay, put them on the same way that they came off, remembering which side they were on. And just set them up against the rotor. And there's two springs. You go in little holes. And get this on the top. Good. I didn't show it on camera, but I pushed the pistons of the caliper in. I opened up the bleed port when I did that and bled out some of the old fluid that was in the caliper. And that way the brakes will go on easier. Alright, I'm messing up my new paint already, but we'll wipe it off when we're done. I'm going to put the top bolt in, never new ones. Make sure you're putting your caliper back on the same correct way. The bleed port is at the top. You can see the caliper slides in underneath the this thing, whatever you call it. And you got to make sure it's like that on the top and the bottom. And you want to pull the caliper in a little bit too. Alright, I'll get my ratchet wrench, and the torque spec on those are 32 foot-pounds. That's going to be 17. Is not that tight. That flat spot's supposed to be stopping that bolt from turning so we can torque it. Not sure why it's not. Oh, good. Maybe just the corrosion has weakened the metal there. There, it's tight enough. I pulled it in a bit and that helped. So we got it to spec. We're gonna get that 10 mil and hook up this bracket again. We'll have to reattach that ABS sensor cable to the bracket. Okay, so our ABS sensor is going to go over like that. Slide your cable in. Not the best paint job, but it will keep it protected. No one's going to see much of this anyway. You can only see maybe 5% of it. So when we first get in the truck, we'll have to pump the pedal a few times, and that will take up the slack in there. But you can see, moves nice and freely, which is what we want. Okay, now we got to redo our tie rod, new impact, and a 22mm socket. And because of the way these tighten up, if it's loose, it will just spin. So we got to put some pressure on it. The best way to do that is to take some pliers and just squeeze it together. That will put pressure on it. You should be able to tighten it down. There we go. And the torque on that is 63. We'll grab our torque wrench again. And we're at 63. Now we can install a new cotter pin on our tie rod. It was a little bit longer than I needed. Just make sure it's not going to hit anything. It'll do its job. Okay, we've got the wheel lug nuts tightened down. They're not torqued yet. But let's just give it a wiggle. We got a little bit of play there, which is probably the tie rod. And no play there. There's no play there. a tiny bit. I think we're moving the hole. It's not loose. Yeah, I think we're probably moving the other tire. Feels way better. I'm gonna drop the truck. Everything's out. Truck's down. Get our lug nuts torqued, and then we'll torque the axle nut. Okay, axle nut, 102, or 101, sorry. Okay, and cotter pin, look at a new cotter pin. Really sized. New cotter pin. Make sure that not too small, it's not going to go through. So we're good. Job done. So if this video was interesting, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more content. Consider joining to become a member, or if any of my videos have helped you save time or money, consider using the super thanks button down below to help out my channel create more videos for you. Thank you.